I wake to the sound of iron breathing. Not a machine's orderly inhale, not the regular sigh of bellows, but a rough, rusted respiration that fills the hold as the transport shudders through atmosphere. The chains at my wrists creak in answer. Small metal lungs keeping time with the larger one around us. The air tastes of scorched oil and the sour incense they feed to the rebreathers to steady nerves and sanctify fear. I swallow the taste inward, like communion. I tell myself it is good to be small inside something faithful and vast. I tell myself this because I have decided to live like a prayer I have already broken. A red lamp trembles overhead and paints every cheek cut with the same bruised halo. In the tremor, the cogitator-lit scripture over the hatch smears and reforms. Labor is liturgy. Breathe with the world. There are other lines beneath, older, scratched, shallow by a nail or a stubborn mind, and then scraped away. I look down at my hands to see if dirt or sin will shake loose when the hull moans. Neither does. We are 40 in this bay, heads shaved, collars humming like fat insects at the base of our skulls. Some murmur the actor's penance under their breath, the way a child might thumb a bead to keep the night at bay. I can only remember the beginning and the end, so I take them both and say them back and forth until they feel like a bridge. My hands are yours, O golden throne. Put them to use. My hands are yours, O golden throne. Put them to use. Between the repetitions I hear the iron breathing again, and I begin to match my own breath to its rough cadence. It is easier that way. A siren like a bent trumpet coughs twice, and the drop harnesses release. We sway on our feet. The overseer, a silhouette with vox grill and a rod that hisses when he taps it against the deck, lifts his hand. Eyes and souls to the dust, he says. Bend head. Prepare to meet your work. Someone laughs once, a dry, splintering sound. Someone else crosses himself with the chain because it is all he has. I keep my eyes on the hatch, because I have written this moment to be my redemption. The charge sheet that sent me here says cowardice in the face of the foe, but I have told myself another name. Pause to listen. The line between those names is thin as a wire, and both ends cut, so I dress the wound with intention. I will not pause. I will not listen. I will only obey. The hatch drops. Heat meets us like a wall of old breath breathed too many times. The light is not the clean white of barracks or the cold blue of troop transports. It is a dull, orange persistence, like embers refusing to remember flame. We file down into it. The first sight of the penal world, this world they call by a number and a saint's half-eaten name, is a plain scored with rails, wagons, and cranes that move with the deliberation of bound colossi. Smoke rises from pits like black litanies. Everything is red or black or somewhere in between, where rust eats both colors and makes a new shade of penance. At the horizon, a line of mountains stoops as if listening. We are herded onto a platform where the wind smells of metallic rain. A servo skull drifts past, ribboned with wards, and the little vox box beneath its half-jaw whispers the rote. Work is worship. Heat is forgiveness. Depth is truth. Its optics click as if it approves of our collars. I bow my head so it will see the gesture and record it somewhere that matters. First lesson. The overseer intones when the vox hiss quiets. You will take breath at the toll. You will swing at the toll. You will rest at the toll. The toll will be your calendar and your catechism. Do not dream between them. He points with his rod, indifferent. Down is your chapel. Tools are the reliquaries. This is your hymn. Father Anselm stepped from the smoke as if the censer had shaped him. His stole was scorched, his eyes kind. 3 rules, he said, loud enough to reach the last collar. Keep time. Keep breath. Keep each other. Time so the world knows where to set its hand. Breath so you don't mistake fear for instruction. Each other so no man's silence becomes a cave. He touched the bell rope once, a blessing without flourish. Hold to these, and even punishment can learn a better name. Behind him, on the edge of the platform, a line of men and women heaves at great bell ropes that rise into the smoke. Their bodies lean in a punishing grace. When they pull, the bells answer from below the earth with a deep, careful voice that seems to speak through the rails, through the bones of cranes, through the soles of our boots. I feel it square in the chest. It is a sound older than the transport, older than my charge sheet, older than the word cowardice. The overseer is right. It sounds like a hymn that is also a sentence. We descend toward the shafts with the bells calling us like mothers who have learned love is discipline. The stairs cut through strata of red stone, and every landing bears a plaque with a name and a number. Plutarchus 9, Cavity. 117. Saint Admin Fane Gallery 3. Some are polished with many years of hands. Some are sharp as if carved this morning. The rails pass beside us, wagons rattling with ore that glints in the low light with the sticky shine of something that has been inside a long time and mislikes the air. Workers in gangs trot behind, voices even as breath. Hands bound in pairs, so that if one man stops, the other man drags him forward, and the pause to listen ends in one of three ways: shock, shout, or the slow motion of shame. A priest stands at the mouth of the shaft, his stole singed and scored with ash. He holds a thurible by a chain, and when it swings, the smoke embraces our faces and calls itself blessing. His eyes are red not with tears but with the dust that moves in every beam of light. He does not look at us as men look at men. He looks at us as if we are already sound, already motion, already instruments. "You, condemned," he says without malice. "You, beloved of labor. You will carry out your sentences where the planet keeps its memory. Each strike will be a word of an old prayer. Each bucket raised will be a psalm. Do not worry over forgiveness. Forgiveness is below, and it is patient as rock. I think. Yes, I think. I have come to a language that cannot be mistaken. The mind does not lie when it asks for muscle. The overseer does not confuse when he taps once to begin and twice to stop. In my old regiment, I had to understand the uncertain motions of a war. Here, there is only the certain descent. Here, there is a chance to earn a straight line through the crookedness of my record. We step into the cage. The gate slams like a book closing on a chapter that ended badly. The cage shivers, drops. Torches in iron brackets nod their heads at us as we pass, and the rings of soot that each torch has stained on the wall resemble the halos of saints who have turned away. The bells sound again, closer now, and their breath touches our faces. I close my eyes to feel the sound more cleanly, so that nothing I see can contradict the promise I have made myself. When we stop, the darkness is whole but for the torches and the thin green line under an auspex screen. The air tastes of damp skin and iron filings. There is a beat. Two, a small music of dripping, a distant tapping. I open my eyes and discover it is simply the men before us walking, and the water that the roof sweats because the world is old and tired and gives off what it cannot keep. They give us tools. The haft of the pick is polished by other hands that have already tried and tried to carry their weight well enough to be seen as useful. The head of the pick has been dressed and redressed until it is as thin as obedience. The overseer shows us where our swings will fall. He taps once. We lift. He taps again. We begin. My first strike stings up through the bone and takes my ear for a moment, like a slap given in love by a father to wake a son on a morning that will be full of work. I find that I have been waiting for that sting. I find that my back is willing. My hands remember lines they once learned to keep me alive on a field, and they are happy to learn new ones that will keep me honest in a hole. I think I am ready to be small so that the work can be large. A hanger-pin snapped up gallery timber sobbing, dust twitching. The line wavered. Old habit said pause. The charge sheet said coward. I counted instead, steady as the bell. 1, 2, 3. Picks rose. 1, 2, 3. They fell together, driving wedges under the sag. The beam settled with a grudging prayer. No overseer's crack, just Father Anselm's low good. I swallowed the old name the paper gave me, and kept the count until my arms forgot fear had ever worn a voice. Around me the others fall into time. The bells, somewhere, keep a long metronome. The picks answer them with a higher key. The breath of 40 men, then 40 more, then hundreds deeper in, swells into a tide that runs along the walls. It is impossible, all at once, to imagine speech more clear than this. I look down at the dust that gathers in ridges on the leather of my boots and call it scripture. Don't stop on the echo. A man to my left tells me without looking. His collar hums at his neck like a nest of patient bees. It will tell you it's time. It isn't. Wait for the taps. I don't stop, I say, and the words surprise me with how easy they are. I must have wanted to say them for a long time. We work. We stop. We move forward 3 steps. We work again. The torches are moved. A small cart squeals. A bare-headed boy with an iron brand on his scalp collects the fractures we've made into a practical shape and hums one of the shorter epistles under his breath. Our losses are for gain, our dust for gold. The overseer taps once, and we lift. He taps again, and the picks come down like rain that believes. Hours pass. The bells toll for water. We drink from iron cups that smell any memory away. The priest comes with his thurible down a side gallery and whispers to it instead of to us, as if the smoke understands better. He dabs a bit of ash at my brow with his thumb and does not speak a word of what he puts there. I decide what it means. Begin again. As he turned, he paused. You keep the measure, he said. A small approval given like water. Canter. The word fit in the space behind my teeth where I'd been holding breath. Not a rank. A task. A name made of time and lungs. I wore it the rest of the shift until it felt like a cord that would not break. On a rest, I sit on a fallen length of timber and close my eyes so my ears can lean. The earth is not silent. It has never been silent, but I did not know until now how many ways a planet can murmur. There is the water's slow tedium. There is the heat's faint swarm. There is the sheer collective breath that the inmates move up and down these galleries like a tide regulated by a distant moon. And there is something else that is not a thing. It is simply a nearness, like when someone stands in the doorframe and waits to be noticed. Not a voice, not a second hymn. Not yet, but a patient shape of attention, as if the rock understands that I am here to apologize. I tell myself that it is the heat's imagination. I open my eyes and count the ribs of the ceiling above me, which have been painted with chalk lines to mark stress. They are all intact. The boy with the brand laughs at a joke someone makes about the swear words the bells know, and the laugh is small and healthy, the kind of laugh that can be forgiven while the work continues. When the toll calls the end of the shift, it is not an end but another rhythm. The way the last prayer of the day shares a door with the first. We stack tools like votive offerings and take up the empty buckets that will rise and come back full with other hands, other hours. The cage brings us up past the levels where men sing without words because they are too tired to hold syllables, and farther up past the levels where the singing isn't song but a kind of counting. We arrive at the platform where the evening wind tastes of iron's dream, and the servo skull is there, and the priest and the overseer, who says, "You have been good wood for the fire." We sleep in long coffins of bunks, stacked into blocks around a central column, where the heat vents like a breath that has been carrying a secret for years. Before sleep, there is the night hymn, a slow recitation that explains to our bodies what they have already learned by repetition. My mouth forms the words in time with 100 other mouths, and I feel an odd humility in knowing I am one brick in a wall that will hold. The priest speaks the blessing in a hoarse voice not meant to carry, and somehow it carries. Later, when the lights are thrown down to embers, and the bunks remember the shapes of other backs and other heads that slept there and rose and did what we must, I lie awake and listen to the iron breathing again. It is not the transport this time. It is the mines speaking through the vents, the rails settling, the cranes sighing at their chains, the buckets clanging a late benediction. I match my breath to it. For the first time since the charge sheet gave me a name I don't want, my hands unclench without permission. I make a small promise into the blanket where my voice can become lint and ash and be forgotten by everyone but me. I say, I will not ask for release. I will not ask for a shorter measure. I will learn to be a good instrument. The bunk above me answers with a creak like an old knee kneeling. It is easy to mistake all sound for an amen when you are ready to hear it as one. Morning comes as a continuation, not a gift. The bells are already awake when we shiver into our boots. A sliver of light slips under the door and lays a single orange blade across the floor. It looks like the kind of light that does not heal or accuse but simply witnesses. I step into it and feel absurdly seen. We file out, and the air folds around us and shows us how large work can be. On the platform, the overseer's rod kisses the rail twice in quick succession to hush the ordinary noise. And the priest lifts his thurible as if it weighs more today than yesterday, or as if he has earned the right to pretend. Listen, he says, and for a moment I think he has spoken directly to me and my sin, as if he knows the wire I walk. But he means the bells. He means the hymn. He means the iron breath that singles us out, not by name but by use. So, I open my chest, which is all I have to open, and I listen as if hearing were work. The day waits in the shaft. The picks wait in their rack, like animals that sleep standing up. The torches wait, heads bowed, for someone to lift them. I am not ashamed to love their patience, or to think it is a kind of courage that does not expect applause. Going down again, I put a hand to the rough wall and feel the scratches of 100 small declarations. Names, times, oaths, the little lines that some hand carved over weeks and months to mark an existence that deserved to be measured. Between two such scratches is a circle no larger than my thumb, and within it, a single vertical line. A candle? A door? A mark? Who put that? I ask the man next to me. He shrugs the non-answer of the long-tired. It was here before I learned to stop asking questions. I rub my finger along the circle. It does not smooth. It remembers the hand that pressed it. I decide to give it a meaning. Because forgive me, Emperor, I am a man who cannot bear to leave a mark uninterpreted. I decide it is a candle that will never be lit. It will only be held. It will be a promise that does not require fulfillment to be true. When the taps come, I lift my pick without hesitation. When the taps come again, I bring it down. The strike rings up through me, and for an instant my ears fill with a sound like a low choir or a large throat clearing before it speaks. It is nothing. It is simply the metal's complaint. It is simply work finding its voice in the world. The idea that something could be listening from below never occurs to me as anything but metaphor. The way all priests make everything a story so we can carry it more easily. I ride the rhythm, and the rhythm carries me back. And so my second day becomes my first again, and in that circle I feel a mercy that I don't deserve but will not refuse. The world breathes in its iron way. I breathe with it. Between the tolls there is space to be a human being without the danger of deciding so much. In the space after the last toll, as the carts rattle and the rails answer them and the rails answer themselves, I feel for a moment that the planet and I are in agreement. I will let it be vast, and it will let me be small. I accept its terms with a gratitude that aches. If there is anything beneath the bells, it can stay beneath. If there is anything waiting to be heard, it can wait. For now, my sentence is a hymn with a simple chorus, and I am its voice. I wake before the bells. Not from a dream. Dreams are a luxury the dust denies us, but from the slow stirring of the air, the faint metallic tang that precedes the toll like an exhalation before a word. The air itself remembers the rhythm. It trembles a moment before the sound arrives. When the bells finally speak, the walls answer them. Dust falls like thin gray snow upon the sleeping faces stacked in bunks around me. Some men open their eyes and begin to mouth the opening prayer before their lungs have even found the measure. Others lie still and let the words slide through them like oil through rust. I rise because that is what the body does when obedience becomes its only honest muscle. My breath ghosts before me, small proof of life in this dim, orange half-light that passes for dawn beneath the surface. We file into the washing trench, where water drips from cracked pipes in irregular hymns. The overseers do not hurry us. They know the rhythm must begin slow to catch true. The act of washing is not for cleanliness, but for order. Every gesture is a lesson in sequence. Hand, face, neck, chain, breath. If you remember the order, you remember who you are supposed to be. A voice comes from the dark archway, thin, mechanical, blessedly predictable. Work is forgiveness. Forgiveness is depth. The servo skull moves through the ranks, trailing its dull incense. I catch a whiff of promethium in the smoke, a reminder that holiness burns if you breathe it too long. In the mess hall, the noise is pure repetition. Tin on tin. A spoon's steady catechism. The meal is a paste of protein and minerals that tastes of nothing but the absence of taste, and still I chew slowly, reverently. A man can be devout about anything if he repeats it enough times. The overseer's rod strikes twice on the rail. Silence folds over us. We rise as one, shackles whispering their ascent. The descent begins again. The second level of the mine is different from the first. Here the air is older. It hangs thicker, heavier with breath already used by the dead. Light slants from lamps suspended by frayed cords, making shadows that shake when we move. The deeper we go, the more I learn that light is not an ally, but a reminder it shows you what the dark has already claimed. The first toll of the shift comes as we take our places. The sound rolls down the galleries like thunder chained to rhythm. We lift our tools, and the day, or what passes for it, begins. Pick, strike, breath, lift. Pick, strike, breath, lift. The pattern fills every sense until it becomes a kind of interior silence. The stillness that lies at the center of sound. I understand now why the priests call labor a hymn. It teaches you how to disappear inside an action. Sometimes I lose track of where my body ends and the work begins. The vibration in my arms is the same pulse that beats in the wall. My heart and the hammer trade places without asking. It is not surrender, not yet, it is alignment. The overseer walks the line, counting. His rod hisses softly as it passes each bowed head. The hiss is mercy. The crack that follows it, judgment. I have not yet earned judgment. When the toll pauses for water, we lean on our tools and share the same breath in the dark. The sound of hundreds exhaling in unison is enormous, like wind moving through an unseen organ. The dust rises and falls with us. A prisoner beside me, gray eyes, number 417 carved into his collar, whispers. If you listen between the tolls, you can hear the planet breathing. I almost answer, but I remember my sin. Pause, to listen. Instead I say, we breathe for it. That is our purpose. He smiles. A slow, cracked thing. Maybe. But I think it learns the rhythm from us. The toll resumes before I can answer. Hours pass like stones through a sieve. When you work this long, time no longer measures distance. It measures weight. The picks rise and fall. The carts roll and squeal. Somewhere above, bells call shifts we will never see. The ore glitters faintly where our lamps catch it, small constellations trapped in stone. I find myself humming the second verse of the penitent's hymn without realizing it. Hands to the dust, hearts to the throne. Each swing a star returning home. No one joins me. No one needs to. The sound folds into the rhythm until I cannot tell if it is my voice or the rocks. The overseer's taps change. Once, pause. Twice, pause. Thrice, we stop. The men drop their tools. Silence stands among us, heavy as iron. He points to a section of wall that sweats a thin line of black moisture. Pressure vein, he says. Test it. Two inmates step forward with drills. The noise that follows is thin, sharp, almost human. The wall gives a sigh, yes, a sigh, and the black vein splits open, hissing steam. The overseer curses and waves us back. The air blooms with a heat that tastes like blood on the tongue. When it settles, the priest arrives. His robes are streaked with ore dust, his thurible dark with soot. He peers into the crack and murmurs a benediction. The words echo strangely, as if repeated from inside the stone. "Echo chamber," the overseer says too quickly. But I see his fingers tremble when he makes the sign of the Aquila. Later, as we resume work, I glance toward the fissure. It has stopped steaming, yet the rock glistens faintly, as if still wet. For a moment, I think I see it pulse with our rhythm. Then someone shouts a verse of the labor chant, and the illusion breaks. At meal break, we gather in the side alcove carved from ancient collapse. The air there hums softly, not unpleasantly. We eat in silence. The boy with the brand traces a circle in the dust with his finger, then divides it with a line. I've seen the same mark before on the wall yesterday. "What is it?" I ask. "A candle," he says. "For those still beneath. There are no tunnels below this level," I tell him. He shrugs. "Maybe not yet." The toll calls us back. By the end of the shift, my hands are split, and my breath rasps like a file on stone. Yet I feel a kind of pride. Pain is proof that the body still has meaning. I whisper the evening line, "Depth is truth, and it tastes sincere." In the lift cage, the priest joins us, his incense swinging low. The smoke curls around our faces like slow, forgiving fingers. He looks at each of us as if counting something invisible. When his gaze meets mine, he smiles faintly. "You listen well," he says. I want to protest, to say that I have learned not to listen. But the words die in the smoke. We ascend. The bells above welcome us home to the surface with the long, patient toll of completion. Every man breathes out as one. The air rushes past like an exhausted hymn. Night. The barracks glow with dull orange lamps. We clean our tools, polish the edges, until they shine with that strange holiness that comes from repetition. The overseer recites the tally of ore extracted. The numbers roll off his tongue like psalms. We answer each with the refrain, "Work is worship." When the count ends, the priest leads the closing prayer. "From dust we came," he says. We respond, "To dust we serve. Through labor we speak. Through silence we endure." He pauses then, and I swear I see doubt flicker across his soot-darkened face. It passes like a shadow between breaths. Later, lying in my bunk, I feel the same tremor that woke me this morning. The rails shifting, the earth exhaling. Only now, beneath the breathing of iron, there is another tone so low it almost hides inside silence. A pulse, slow and deep, answering the rhythm we make. Perhaps the planet does listen. Perhaps that is the mercy we were promised. I close my eyes and let my breath fall into time with it. Hands to the dust, hearts to the throne. Each swing a star returning home. The words feel heavier tonight. I wake inside a word I did not say. Not sound, not yet only the shape of a syllable pressed against the inside of my chest, as if the night's breath had stamped a seal there while I slept. Men around me roll from their bunks with the same old groans and the same old pieties, but something else passes between the rows like a candle shielded by a palm. The air has a mid-sentence quality. Even the dust seems to be waiting to fall. The bells do not begin all at once. A single low strike hangs, a halo with no head beneath it. Then the second comes long after it should have, as if the bell had to travel back from where it was called. The rails twitch. The overseer's rod kisses iron. We move. The day arranges itself around the delay like a congregation that forgives a late priest. In the washing trench, the water's rhythm has changed by a breath. None of us speak of it. We do not need to. The body knows when a prayer has acquired a second mouth. The descent feels shorter, as if the cage has less down to climb through. On the second level, lamps burn flatter than yesterday, their flames refusing to waver even when men pass. The boy with the brand is already at the racks, fingers lingering on the haft of my pick as if measuring the length of my penance. "Keep the edge," he says as a blessing. I nod. The racks smell of oil and hands and a faint sweetness like paper that has once been a letter. The overseer raises his rod. Once, twice, thrice, we lift our tools. The first strikes sound ordinary. Iron on stone, muscle answering instruction. Then, between the third and the fourth, a breath appears that is not ours. I hear it as a soft intake threaded through the gallery, the way a choir adds a low note under a psalm to make the rest of the singing stand up straighter. It does not come from left or right or behind. It comes from the wall in front of me, from the rock I am meant to break, and it is the exact size of the silence I have been carrying since the charge sheet called me something I am not. I bring the pick down. The wall exhales. Not a rush, not a draft. A breath, warm enough to fog the lamp glass nearest it, damp enough to lay a wet finger down the spine of every man in reach. We freeze, half bent, as if the air had remembered our names after so long neglect and we were caught between gratitude and flight. "Back," the overseer says. But he says it like a man who is being careful with the distance between letters. We do not back. We lean. The rock does not move. It does not crack or slump or shed dust. It simply breathes for a second time, and in that breath the faintest tone hums, the tone of a tuning fork pressed to the bone behind the ear. The priest arrives in the passage with the incense already burning, as if summoned by the way our shoulders had knelt without our knees. He swings the thurible once and lowers it, and the smoke from it chooses to go toward the wall. "Do you hear?" Someone whispers. The whisper goes into the stone and comes back not as echo but as answer, the same word colored by a deeper throat. "Hear." Silence afterward is a kind of heat. The overseer's rod hisses in his grip. The priest closes his eyes, as if to make room for an old phrase. "Not a voice," he says too quickly. "The acoustics." He stops because the stone has inhaled again. And this time the exhale is not simply warmth. It is formed. It leaves my mouth without permission. Hands to the dust, I speak, and the rock inside the phrase speaks with me. A second mouth finishing what mine began. "Hearts to the throne," the boy with the brand replies, his eyes wide, and the wall repeats him with a patience no echo has ever possessed. No one laughs. No one flees. We stand inside the liturgy and discover that it can stand inside us too. The overseer lifts his rod and taps twice, a reflex of a world that had rules a moment ago. We should resume. We do not. Our tools hang in the balance the way a prayer does when it waits for the last word to descend. The last word descends. It is not ours. "Begin," the rock says, not loud, not with any scream in it. The syllable comes from the fissures and capillaries of the wall, from the 1,000 thin cracks we made with our faithful violence. And it is spoken in the tone a father uses when he has placed his hands upon a boy's shoulders the first time he is given a task. We begin. Not because the overseer's rod tells us, because the mind breathes and tells us, and because something in us has been waiting to be told in that way since we were children without language. The next hour wears a new rhythm. Our picks travel from shoulder to stone as if completing an instruction deeper than tendons. Wherever a head strikes, the oar answers with a consonant you can hear it, I swear. The dull D, the small T, the rolling R, as if the veins themselves remember being part of archaic words. We fall into phrases. The priest stops swinging his censer and stands with his head cocked, listening like a man who never believed he would be rewarded for listening again. At the next toll, the bells hold the final note longer than they ever have, and the rails reply with a long, slow, almost tender groan that straightens the hair at the nape of my neck with its familiarity. A man down the gallery drops his tool and weeps. The overseer looks at him and does not raise the rod. Depth is truth, the priest says powerlessly. Truth is depth, the wall answers. We do not turn away. We are children in a room where the father has come home and speaks softly, so we will not frighten ourselves with what we have been doing alone. We work. The ore comes free in cleaner faces than it did yesterday, as if the stone has decided to unclench. Our bodies receive the change as a reduced ache, a quieting of complaint in the wrists. The carts fill faster, their wheels singing a high descant as they roll. Men begin to hum not the labor chant, not the regulated verse, but simple human humming. The note a throat finds when it wishes to keep something inside it from breaking. The boy with the brand touches the wall the way a pilgrim touches a saint's reliquary. "Is this you?" he asks, not knowing who he means. "You," the wall says back, and I feel it in my jaw hinge. We take water with our backs still to the rock, unwilling to turn away. The cups taste sweeter, or perhaps that is the taste of thirst forgotten and returned. The overseer kneels without announcing it. The priest notices and looks away. "Name me." I whisper, not to be heard by men. "Begin," the wall repeats, and I almost laugh with the relief of a command that does not accuse. A siren sounds too far away to be relevant. The smoke sighs along the ceiling. The rails shiver with wagons passing somewhere above, their iron bodies calling out to our iron bodies to keep faith. When the toll calls the mid-shift hymn, we do not recite the prescribed lines. We recite the first words we learned as children. "He is the light of man," someone begins, faltering as if caught stealing fruit. The rock continues without embarrassment. "He is the light," it says, finishing nothing. I expect correction. I expect the overseer to crack the rod, the priest to step between us and the stone, to measure the line of our mouths and bring it back to approved shape. None of that happens. The room stands as a lung stands between breaths. The men watch the priest. The priest watches his incense burn. Smoke becomes our shield. We swing again. We are good instruments. The breath between the falls of the picks becomes a place where the wall whispers fragments in the tone of a father reading a ledger aloud. Wait, measure, begin, enough, again. I do not know whether we are hearing new words or whether we are only holding old words to the light long enough to see their bones. It does not matter. The earth is answering. That is the miracle. Toward the end of the shift, the light in the lamps thins, as if it has been diluted by breath. The boy with the brand begins to draw his candle sign in the dust and stops, staring. The dust is already marked. Circles and lines. Circles and lines. No hand could have made so many in the time between the tolls. "Do you see?" He asks no one. "See," the rock says, and the lamp nearest the fissure flares briefly, oil licking its chain. The overseer taps once. Habit lifts our tools. He taps twice. Habit pauses our throats. He taps thrice, and then lowers the rod as if it has become heavy. "Work," he says, but the word sounds small inside the larger word holding the room. When the final toll comes, its long bass wraps around our lungs. We put down our tools with the care given to devotional objects and reach for the buckets and the rails and the beloved drudgeries that carry us toward surface. In the cage, the priest joins us, but he does not bless. He holds the thurible against his chest the way a penitent holds a wound to keep it warm. Halfway up, the cage stutters. We sway. Men reach for chains, for shoulders, for old anchors. The lamps sway with us and draw long ovals of light on the rock. In those ovals, words crawl like insects, legible for only an instant. Begin. Listen. Again. Then the cage smooths, and the words are only stains. The boy with the brand grins a holy grin that makes him look 5 years younger. On the platform, the air feels thin, as if the planet's lungs have gone below to tell stories to the dark. The overseer opens his mouth, no quota, no tally. His face has the look of a man who has lost a habit and does not yet know which to replace it with. The servo skull swivels its optics toward the mouth of the shaft, listening like a small animal that recognizes a larger animal has entered the room. Night carries us to the mess hall with soft feet. Our spoons do not scrape. The stew tastes for a moment of the incense, then of the stone, then of nothing. No one speaks. Even silence seems suddenly blasphemous if misused. In the barracks, we perform our tiny rituals with an attention we have not had since our first day. Boots aligned toe to heel, tools oiled and racked in a careful choir, blankets folded to replicate a remembered shape. The night hymn rises. We sing in a lower key than usual, as if embarrassed to be overheard by a listener greater than ourselves but familiar enough to be invited. When the last line arrives, the one about surrender, the one that has always felt like a wooden plank I must carry whether or not it belongs to me, I discover it is light. I have never spoken so easily. Lights dim. In the old space that opens after any prayer, I whisper into my blanket, "Was that you?" The question holds my sin and polishes it into a smaller stone. The bunk above me answers with a tired creak. The rails answer with the long note of metal cooling. Beyond them, beneath them, the earth shifts the way a man turns on his side to hear a child better. Warmth moves along the floorboards and finds my feet. Begin. The world breathes. I do not weep. I lie very still and let the syllable place itself against my sternum where the first word woke me. I will rise before the bells tomorrow. I will go down before any man calls me. When the overseer taps once, I will already be lifting. When he taps twice, I will already be waiting. Work will be my answer. Listening will be my work. This is not profane. This is not a trick in the stone. In the quiet that follows, in the hush that tastes like the inside of a chapel before a service begins, I know that for a few hours in the second level of the mine, the emperor lowered his mouth to the earth and breathed through it so that men who had forgotten their names might hear themselves spoken without accusation. I sleep inside that word. The iron breath carries me. I do not wake to bells, but to the absence between them. A held breath in the stone, like a father pausing before he speaks a hard kindness. The bunks around me creak one by one as men remember how to be upright. Someone mutters the half-remembered line he always starts with, and the rest of us fill in the gaps from habit more than faith. The air smells of last night's oil, damp wool, and a sweetness that I cannot name without making it precious. I linger a moment with my boots unstrapped, listening for the iron lungs of the world to begin. They do, late by a heartbeat, as if the planet had brushed ash from its tongue before saying our names. In the trench, the water falls slower, each drop a measured bead on a wire. The servo skull drifts past, incense trailing, and the smoke curls beneath the arch that leads down. We follow it as if smoke were both guide and vow. On the platform, the overseer lifts his rod, not with the old impatience, but with a kind of hesitation I recognize from soldiers who have seen a miracle they cannot report. He taps once, twice, thrice. We descend. The lamps on second level burn with a soft, even flame, as if the air has been taught a steadier way to hold light. We go to our stations. The first toll settles into us like a hand on a shoulder. We lift. We strike. The world exhales, that warm answer we met yesterday returning without flourish or demand. The boy with the brand smiles without showing his teeth and touches the wall as you would touch the brow of a sleeping child. We begin our hymn of metal and breath. Words come unbidden to my mouth, not rote this time, but gratitude with edges rubbed off. You were there. The wall does not speak back in syllables. It answers in steadiness, no shivers in the lamp flames, no stray cracks singing their thin alarms, no failing in the rail's low song. The priest, who has taken to standing in the near gallery watching us as if we might turn into something worth seeing, keeps his thurible still and lets its smoke do the speaking. Midway to the first water call, the tone under the picks changes. Not wrong, not yet. Lower. A new warmth collects along the floor, a reminder of blood finding a root around a bruise. The rails groan as if stretching after a long sitting. The overseer hears it and glances up at the ceiling where chalk lines map stress like a star chart. His mouth tightens in prayer, not command. At water, we lean on tools and breathe together, listening. Dust motes spin in the lamplight like thoughts we have not shaped. The boy makes his little candle in the grit with the certainty of a right. For those still beneath, he whispers. There is no beneath. The man with 417 carved into his collar says, but he does not kick the mark away. The toll resumes. Picks rise. The first crack is not a sound, but a change in the shape of sound. The air collapses inward by a finger's width, and the lamps inhale. Then the roof above the far end of our gallery sighs, a long, tired release, and the world remembers gravity. Rock descends like a curtain drawn by a patient hand. There is no burst, no scream, only the hush of dust leaping up to meet what falls. Down! The overseer cries, not to outrun, but to make the right shape of body for what is now. We bend, arms over heads, faces to knees, tools abandoned like instruments in a church where the sermon has stopped. The floor lifts, drops, lifts in a slow undulation, as if the mine has learned the sea. I squeeze my eyes shut and try to make my breath the size of a coin. The dust arrives. It fills ears first, then mouth, then the folds between fingers where you hold the small truths you're afraid to say. I taste rust and the cheap incense of our days. A beam lands near me with a dignified thump. The boy with the brand whimpers once. The lamps do not go out, but they redden, as if the flame is embarrassed by its own light. Silence. Afterward, full as a chest, I lift my head. The far third of the gallery is gone behind a slope of fallen rock, tamped as neatly as bread. Men are on their knees, coughing prayer. One lies still beneath a curtain of dust, but when I touch his shoulder, he flinches and lives. The overseer is counting with his lips, his rod lost somewhere under the new floor of stone. Hold, he says, because men will move into any space they think is offered. We hold. The dust settles in layers like old years. When the last drift falls, I become aware of a new edge to quiet, the space where distant bells should be and are not. The loss is not noise. It is absence shaped like a door. The lift? 417 asks. Gone, says someone who can say the word without making it a judgment. The priest moves to the slope and presses his palm to it as if feeling for fever. He closes his eyes. His lips shape lines I cannot hear. The smoke from his thurible chooses a direction and threads itself into hairline seams between the stones, as if seeking places where breath could still get through. It meets only itself and comes back. We're sealed, he says. The words land softly, like ash. A man laughs, not unkindly. Sealed, he echoes, to see if the shape changes when another mouth holds it. It does not. Our lamps listen to their own breathing. The heat collects. The air takes on a flavor like the inside of a glove. Somewhere a drop falls with metronomic patience, as if a single clock in a hall of clocks has survived. The overseer lowers himself until he is sitting with his back to the wall, as if petitioning it. Rations, he says, and the word fumbles for authority like a hand in a pocket. Water. Count. We pass the cups. We count without speaking. The numbers fit into each other without remainder, as if mercy had done the math ahead of us. Hours pass, though we have no bells to tell us how to spend them. Our bodies make their own with thirst and ache and the two-step of breath and heartbeat. The boy with the brand curls beside me and places his palm against the wall as if it is a dog that will settle under a human touch. He is here, he murmurs, with a faith you want to borrow the way you might borrow a coat. Do not sleep, the overseer says, gently, not as a rule but as a favor. We do not sleep. We tell small stories we have never told where a scar came from, the taste of a fruit whose name we have forgotten but whose juice stained our chins when we were 10. A rumor about a saint who wandered into a desert and came back with a book made of wind. The priest listens, eyes half closed, as if each story is a line in a psalm he was not taught and is glad to learn. From time to time we dig, not to escape a thought that feels like blasphemy against the design of what's happened, but to make ourselves useful to the fact. We move stones from where they sit to where they can sit more quietly. We make neatness inside collapse. We become the kind of men who group pebbles by consent. In one of those quiets that lie between necessary gestes, the wall takes a breath. Warmth moves along our spines as if a choir had leaned forward to remind us of time. A tone rides the warmth, pitched low enough to undercut the panic that has been waiting for its chance and tell it to go stand in a corner. I feel my shoulders drop. Tears surprise me, not for fear but for relief that something has not forgotten to make space for us. When the voice comes, it is not a word first. It is the sensation of being regarded with the kind of patience that makes you want to tell the truth, because lying would take more energy than you have. It is the stillness after a father sits down on the edge of your bed and says your name once without a question attached. It is the permission not to be brave so that you can be good. Then it is a word. Child, the wall says, gently, meaning all of us. The syllable is not in my ears. It is in the bones around them. Our mouths open like altar doors. The boy with the brand makes a sound that is not weeping but something we will call weeping later to honor its tenderness. The overseer bows his head as if to receive weight, not to avoid it. The priest sets the thurible down so softly the chain doesn't clink. Child, the wall says again. To practice our shape, I say yes in a voice I do not recognize as mine because it has no defense left in it. Begin, the wall tells us. Not as command this time, but as comfort, the way you tell a man to breathe when he has been counting his heartbeats and is afraid to waste one. We begin to live in the sealed room. We allot sips. We trade postures for circulation. We place a lamp at the base of the slope and agree to feed it oil a drop at a time so its flame remains a witness instead of a feast. We take turns pressing our cheeks to the stone and speaking the names we can stand to remember. The wall says them back when it can, not perfectly, but with intention, thickening the syllables with a gravity that makes every name feel more itself instead of less. When thirst dries our mouths to parchment and the taste of iron becomes the only season, the voice comes again, close as breath. Rest. It means go ahead and sit, because sitting isn't surrender. It is consent to the shape of the moment. Share. We pass the cups. The boy tries to refuse his sip. 417 tips it toward him with a look that is the look men give each other over the last embers of a winter fire when they have both survived and are ashamed of having to enjoy the relief. The boy drinks. The wall warms under his palm in gratitude so clear I feel it in my teeth. Remember, the wall says, and men speak, haltingly at first, then in a quiet flood of little unremarkable mercies, a mother's sleeve that smelled of flour. A hymn half-hummed by a grandfather who had no words left. The way frost draws the same pattern on old glass, no matter which year it is. Not one of us speaks of medals or battles or the kind of courage you can pin to a chest. The wall takes these small offerings and gives them back with weight, as if each memory has been plated in something dull and incorruptible. The lamps burn lower. The air sweetens with a fatigue that is not surrender but a cousin to it. The priest says, we could recite, and we wait for the rote. But he chooses different lines, the ones from childhood you never thought counted because they were too simple. I shall not want, he says into his hands. Want not, the wall answers, kindly ungrammatical. We laugh a little, because love sometimes has the wrong words and means them absolutely. In that laugh, a small stone shifts near the top of the slope. Dust slides like a whispered amendment. We look up together. Nothing follows. We look back down together and act as if we have chosen this room because dignity is a thing you hold for one another when the world has turned. Time goes on. The body proves its furniture. Hunger sits. Thirst stands at the edge. Weariness lies down and gets up. Men doze with their backs touching so the shape of a human remains available for anyone who needs it. We wake each other before the dreams can take too much. The voice returns not with schedule but with timing. When panic climbs the back of my throat, it says, "Child," and panic abashes itself. When I start counting the sips I did not take because I thought numbers could make me holy, it says, "Share," and I let the thought go down the slope with a pebble. Will they find us? Someone asks into his sleeve when the quiet resembles the quiet of a winter morning before the fire is made. Yes, I say, because I need it to be true, and because I want to see how the wall will answer. Yes, says the wall, and in the syllable is neither the cheerfulness of a lie nor the bleakness of a map. It is a promise without schedule, a hand on a shoulder in a room without clocks. We sleep then, a proper sleep, because we have been granted permission to be unuseful for a while. The lamps throw their thin rings onto the ceiling. The rings overlap into a diagram that looks like the chalk star chart of the stress lines, but kinder. I dream of walking down into my own chest and finding a door I have never opened because I was told only officers have keys. The door is unlocked. Behind it is a chair. On the chair is a coat. I put it on, and it smells of smoke and iron, and the particular sweat of men who do not want to shame each other with hurry. I wake to the sound of stones being careful. The slope has lost its desire to be tall. The rail on our side of the collapse sings one long note. Then another sound rides up through our feet. A tap-tap that has not been used on this level since the world was disassembled into shifts and quotas. Rescue, the old word, arrives without its drumbeat of heroics. Just a quiet patience wearing gloves. The boy sits up with a gasp that makes him younger than he has ever been. 417 grips my arm. The overseer's eyes shine with a moisture that has nothing to do with dust. The priest says nothing, which is the correct blessing when a door opens and you are already standing. The wall warms along my spine one last time, the way a father might kiss the crown of a child's head without waking him. "Begin," it says. "Begin what?" I whisper, forgetting to be silent in wonder. There is no answer that is a sentence. There is the scrape of stone, the small delighted cough of a new draft finding a root, the lamp flames leaning toward whatever comes. "Begin," the wall repeats, and I understand it means begin whatever is next with the same consent you gave this room. Light appears, not white or blue, but our old ember orange thinning into something paler, a color that anticipates air. Faces appear on the other side of the narrowing, blackened, familiar. A hand punches through the last plate and stops as if bewildered to have touched us sooner than expected. We do not cheer. We reach, and the reaching is larger than joy. They pull us out one by one as though birth were a discipline. We pass through the throat, the collapse made for us, and into a gallery that looks exactly like the one we left, except that all of us see it now as the outside of a room we loved. Men on the living side look relieved with embarrassment. The habit of surviving has made them shy. The overseer finds his rod and lifts it, and cannot find the place to put it down in the air. The priest stands in the breach an instant longer than the rest of us, as if preparing a benediction for stone, then follows, the thurible smoke smearing a small dark blessing on the edge of the slope where our breaths will take a while to learn this new space. The bells are silent. Perhaps the collapse has eaten their lines. Perhaps the surface has, wisely, chosen to hold the breath it has left for men who need it more than we do. The rails hum anyway, catching our hearts and carrying them ahead as if to scout the way back to habit. In the barracks, we remove our boots and lay them side by side like tired animals who have done their tricks and earned their crumbs. The boy with the brand draws his candle mark on the floor beside his bunk and adds a second line crossing the first. "For those still beneath," he says, and this time none of us corrects him. When the night hymn comes, it begins late again, and softer, as if the current that feeds the lamps has chosen reverence over brightness. We sing with voices that do not try to be strong. When the final line settles, the world speaks through the vent with a breath that smells faintly of the room where we were, and I feel both chosen and small in a way that makes me want to get up early and wash the trench with my hands. I lie down, The bunk remembers me. In the space between breaths that the chapter of today has earned, the word waits where it always does. Child. The wall murmurs through the bones of the building. Begin. It is so gentle I could pretend I imagined it. I do not pretend. I put my palm to the wood and answer without sound. Yes. Sleep takes me like a hand that knows my shoulder. I return to the shift with a new certainty, and they call it recovery. The Medicae dab my cracked hands with a bitter balm that smells like mint remembered by a machine. The priest marks our brows with clean ash and recites the litany of continuation, as if the words have never meant more than they mean today. The overseer reads the quotas in a voice steady enough to pass inspection. We nod and accept our bowls and our tools, and a small file of candles burns at the chapel's back wall without flame, just their wicks stained dark by previous prayers, as if to remind us that light, too, keeps vigil in unlit forms. I tell myself, because I need to, that routine is mercy, that the return to sequence is the proper answer to wonder. We descend. The cage rattles like a hymn with too many familiar verses. The lamps in the second level hold steady this morning, their flames small and obedient, holding their breath as if out of respect. The slope where the collapse sealed us has been cut into a precise bite, timbers bracing its jaw. Someone has painted a narrow white line along the bite's edge, a clean border to show where the disaster ends and the work begins. The boy with the brand taps his chest twice with 2 fingers and does not cross the line, though his eyes linger. On stations, the overseer says. He keeps his rod low, as if the air above our heads is a gentler thing worth preserving. We take up our places. The toll calls, and for a heartbeat, I expect the wall's warm exhale to greet us like a father's hand. It does not. The picks rise on instruction, not inspiration. When they fall, the strike is honest, but ordinary. For the first hour, the only voice is work. Some of the men look relieved. You can feel the world trying to settle into its old shape, like a blanket shaken and folded back over a bed where someone slept too hard and ruined the corners. The priest returns to pacing, swinging his thurible with the old rote grace. The smoke goes everywhere instead of choosing a seam. The rails hum, the carts complain, the ceiling keeps its chalk constellations in place. The planet is polite, and yet, between the second and third toll I hear it again, the smallest breath tucked inside the picks, a syllable without consonant, pure vowel, half a yawn, half a name. It moves along the gallery like a small tide, touching ankle, knee, hip, heart. When I look up, I find the boy's eyes already on me, brighter than the lamps. He nods once and presses his palm to the wall as if applying a bandage. The wall warms under his hand. I see it in the way his shoulders drop their tension, and then the warmth hides like a child behind a doorframe. Keep time, the overseer says, sharper than he needs to. He heard it too. We keep time. We make the pattern so clean it shines. The hours polish themselves until they can reflect the faces of officials. The tally board at the end of the shift glows with numbers as handsome as medals. The overseer stands taller beside it. The priest's voice carries better in the mess. The servo skull's recordings click with satisfaction. On the surface, somewhere in a room with good air, our output will pass under a clerk's eye and be recorded as an uptick of faith. I tell myself, this is restoration, not erasure. If the world beneath speaks less loudly, perhaps it is because it trusts us more. At night, the barracks keep the old smell of wool and oil. The boys at the end of the row play the quiet finger game they've always played, counting bones along their hands and turning the count into a catechism. The boy with the brand draws his candle in the dust beneath his bunk again and adds a second circle around the first. A halo for a wick that will never burn. Not on the floor, the overseer says, passing. It is almost gentle. The boy smears it out with a slow palm. When the overseer moves on, he redraws it on the underside of the bunk slat where no shoe will tread. A secret mark for knees to find. I lie down and wait for sleep to lift me into the word that lives under everything now. It does not come at once. Instead, the mind sends up a different mercy, tiredness without fear. I let it take me until the bells are a pale dream at the foot of my bed. When morning comes, I wake with the sense a sentence left unfinished in the night. The mouth of the world is still close, I think, only sleeping. We descend again. The second level licks the lamps once with an invisible tongue and then holds its mouth closed. We take our places. I discover that my hands are faster than my thoughts now. The rhythm arrives even before the tap, an internal metronome that the wall placed in my chest in the sealed room and forgot to remove. I lift my pick with the old eagerness no longer to redeem myself but to answer. When the strike lands, the wall says softly, shyly, again. It is not a command. It is a consolation, as if the stone knows how much we want to hear it and wishes not to make us choose between the overseer's rule and the greater attention beneath. Again, I echo into the swing. The overseer's rod hisses as warning, and then does not fall. He has learned the difference between sedition and gratitude. As the day climbs toward its middle, small oddities accumulate where only I seem to see them. The flame at the far lamp never wavers, even when a draft slips past our ankles. The rails hum at a pitch that matches the humming in my teeth. The dripping in the side gallery speeds up whenever my breath grows ragged and slows when I rest. The wall does not speak in words, but it keeps time with us, as if to keep us from falling out of ourselves. A new gang joins our gallery midway through the shift, fresh faces from another pit, floaters sent to fill numbers. They laugh too easily and swing too hard, as men do when they think strength is a kind of prayer. One of them, a man with a scar shaped like a hook along his jaw, scoffs when he sees the boy touch the rock. "Don't pet it," he says. "It isn't a dog." The boy removes his hand and bows his head, not in shame, but to steady something that might spill. I step forward without a plan and say, "We don't pet it. We listen. It listens back." The words fall out of my mouth like stones I have been carrying too long. The hook scar laughs the laugh men use to keep from hearing. Rock is rock. It gives what hammers take. That's all. Sometimes the stone is a psalm, the priest says from the shadow near the racks. He does not step into the lamplight. Sometimes the psalm is a stone. He does not elaborate, and his silence is more persuasive than any sermon. The hook scar drifts away, scooping up scoffs he might need again later. We work. The hours thread themselves into a rope that doesn't break but burns the hands. At water, 417 leans close enough that his collar hum touches my neck. "It's fainter," he says. "Maybe it is teaching us to speak without needing reply," I say. He looks at me as if to ask whether that is wisdom or pride. I do not know. I drink and discover that the water tastes of last night's dream. An inspection comes from the surface at the end of the second day after the collapse, men with clean boots and eyes that do not adjust to dimness. They carry a small icon of the Aquila fixed to a staff and stand it in the mouth of the gallery like a spear guarding a doorway. One of them speaks into a slate, while another scans our collars for hours and heart rates. The overseer's numbers are good. The inspection nods. Before they leave, the senior of them, robe too clean, voice too clipped, says, "There will be no talk of anomalies. Faith does not require decoration." His assistant hands the priest a folded sheet of doctrine stamped with cog and skull. The priest does not unfold it. He places it in the breast of his robe like a letter he will read someday, when the words mean less than the act of holding them. When the inspection has gone and the icon has been carried back up into tidy air, the gallery exhales a breath we all pretend we do not hear. The overseer does not look at the ceiling. The boy with the brand wipes the corner of his eye with a dirty knuckle and leaves a clean streak there, a pale river through a continent of dust. That night, as we lay in our bunks and the rails sing small iron lullabies to the beams, I whisper, "Are you still there?" "Here," the wood of the bunk replies in the voice of the wall, so soft it could be a memory loosening from a nail. I fall asleep quickly, like a man who has learned where rest lives, and does not wish to be rude to it. I dream nothing useful, only a sense of someone standing at the foot of my bed counting something. When I wake, I realize it is my breaths, counted back to me. The days pass and become the string by which life is held. The wall speaks less, but its silence holds more. The lamps burn a little longer on the same oil. The picks stay sharp a little past their honest dulling. A cart's wheel stutters, then finds its groove again as if corrected by a hand no man can see. We do not perform miracles. We are performed upon, and all we have to do is keep the measure. The boy begins to hum a tune that is not any of our hymns. It has only 4 notes, none of them high, like a prayer that refuses to lift its eyes out of respect. Others pick it up. The slow, steady thread runs the length of the gallery until the whole tunnel seems to move its breath on those notes. We have, without meeting about it, learned not to sing words when the inspection returns. Breath is safer than syllables. It is around then that I notice the light. Not a new light, a subtraction. Where the lamps throw their soft orange circles, the edges of the circles have begun to darken, not with shadow, but with a kind of velvet. The center remains faithful, but the circumference forgets to be seen. Tools left on the ground develop quiet borders where the glow refuses to go. When I hold my hand out at arm's length, I can still see it, but the space between my fingers looks less like air and more like a pause. "Don't worry it," 417 says when he catches me staring. "Eyes play tricks when the mind grows proud. I'm not proud." I say, "That's the proudest answer," he says, but his tone is kind. I keep the observation to myself. The wall speaks in tiny touches more than words now. Warmth at my lower back when I stand too long in one position. A just perceptible easing of the breath above the heart when fear thinks it could be useful. Once, when my pick bites wrong and I am about to stumble, the floor is there where it would not have been yesterday. I step and do not fall. I say thank you aloud with the reflex of a child who spills and is helped and knows better than to explain. The priest changes the order of our night hymn. He does not ask permission. He places the line about surrender earlier, where it can do less harm and more good, and leaves quiet after it long enough for those with ears to set their breaths inside it. No one complains. The overseer hums the 4-note tune under his breath without knowing he's taken it up. The inspection does not notice or pretends not to. On the 5th morning after the collapse, I wake with the clear sense that the word again will not be enough any longer. I do not dread the change. I wash my hands in the slow drip and let the water explain the shape of my fingers to me. In the cage, the boy with the brand stands close. His shoulder touches mine in the same way men crowd into a shrine, not to be near the statue but to be near one another. We take our stations. The lamps lift their small heads. The toll is late by 2 heartbeats. When the picks fall, the wall breathes, and the syllable it offers is not consolation but invitation. "Deeper," it says. Once, with a warmth that is not a push. The overseer's rod hisses. It does not strike. The priest's hand tightens on the thurible chain, a mild pain he refuses to dignify. The boy looks at me. I do not look back. I nod and swing harder. Not because of the syllable alone, but because the syllable names what we have already been doing ever since the sealed room. Going on. We work into the place where the lamp's circles shrink and deepen. We work into the velvet hems of light. The air grows cooler on the cheeks but warmer under the ribs. The rails hum the tune without wheels on them. The wall does not speak again that shift. It does not need to. Every strike lands with the feeling of an answer, even when no question has been asked. At end of day, the tally board bears a number the overseer wants to be proud of, and is afraid to be. He does not announce it. He hangs the slate with its chalked grace on a nail, and puts away the rod with the care of a man stowing a family instrument after a funeral. The priest pauses at the mouth of the gallery, the thurible still, the smoke folding over itself in the slow way of satisfied things. He lays his hand on the lintel, stone cold from never seeing sun, and says, almost inaudibly, "Where the light does not reach, the breath does." No one answers. We do not need to. That night, when the lamps in the barracks lower themselves like eyes closing upon a prayer they trust, the rails sigh. The bunk above me creaks the amen I have learned to accept. I put my palm flat against the wood and feel the walls heat at an impossible distance. The word does not come, not any of the familiar ones. Instead, the smallest gesture, the feeling of someone sitting at my bedside, counting my breaths again, not to judge them, but to accompany. False restoration, they would call this. The world returned to its old arrangement, the quotas met, the prayers said, the inspections satisfied. But I know now that restoration is a room built inside other rooms, and this room has a different door, and the handle is warm. I sleep, not because I am weary, but because I am expected to. Here, several walls answer, not quite in words, but in an agreement made of pitch. I wake to a hum braided with my breath. Not the rail's old groan, not the bell's paternal call, something finer, threaded through the chest like a silver wire drawn tight to keep the ribs from forgetting their shape. Men in the bunks around me turn over without waking as the note moves from one body to the next, a soft hand testing the temperature of sleeping foreheads. I lie still and count the intervals between my inhale and the hum's small ascent. When I exhale, it descends with me, as if it has learned politeness. The bells arrive late and gentle, as if unwilling to interrupt. The trench water falls in thinner threads. Each drop rings as it lands, and the rings fit one another like nested bowls. The servo skull's incense smells lighter this morning, almost sweet, as though the oil we have burned into the stone has found its way back out through smoke. On the platform, the overseer lifts his rod and looks at it with new caution, like a tool he has inherited without instructions. The priest's hands are clean today. He has not yet taken the ash to mark our brows. For a moment, I think he means to spare us ceremony. Then I realize he is listening. We descend. Second level opens like a throat prepared to sing. The lamps hold their heads steady. The slope from the collapse sits obedient, stitched with new timbers. The painted white line glows dull as old bone. The rails hum in a key just slightly under hearing. The first toll lands. We lift our picks, and the wall answers not with the father word I have come to cherish, not with the one-syllable kindness that steadies knees, but with an accord, 3 notes rising out of the ore where our irons make contact. Each note separate, and yet married to the others, as though they were always meant to arrive together. We freeze. Then, without instruction, we strike again at the same places on the stone. The chord returns, fuller, a fourth voice joining like a thread sewn through 2 layers to keep them from slipping. Do you hear? The boy with the brand breathes, as if afraid a loud marvel might wake a sleeping grief. It is not just us. Far down in the parallel gallery, another gang strikes and receives a second chord, pitched higher, thinner, the sound of wires pulled tight over a hollow prayer. Somewhere beyond that, a deeper resonance moves like a whale in a dark ocean none of us can afford to name. The air gathers these tones and holds them together without effort, a bowl of breath that does not spill. We begin to test. Where the ore veining the face runs dull and reddish. A hammer placed here and here makes a 2-note drone that lies under everything like a floor. Where the silvery threads cross at a shallow angle, a small tap with the pick's back yields a bell-like strike that is not unlike the surface tolls, but truer, as if freed from distance. The boy lays his palm on a scatter of glittering grains and hums. The grains hum back, as if memory were not in people, but in particulate. 417 takes a length of leftover rail and leans it against the wall. When a cart passes on the main line, the leaning rail becomes a tongue and speaks a 5th note, completing our chord with a patience that makes everyone smile in spite of the dust. Keep time, the overseer says, but the rod never rises, and his mouth has the softness of a man listening for his own name in a crowd. The priest does not swing his thurible. He sets it on the ground and pinches the chain between thumb and forefinger as if weighing the small ache it makes. "If work is worship," he says without looking at us, "then perhaps worship is work we've been doing blindly." He does not bless the words. He lets them breathe. We play, though we would never call it play. We strike with more attention than force, discovering that certain seams prefer to be addressed at a slant, that other seams shy from direct blows but open to rhythm, that some sections of wall will not sound unless 3 men swing as one. The galleries answer each other across the dark. One chord meets another and makes a third that neither could have predicted. A 4-note pattern emerges, the same one the boy has been humming these days, and when the carts rattle, it becomes a low drum under our small song, a heart we have borrowed. The oar is not only sound. When we lift a bucket of shards whose edges are sharp with recent freedom, the bucket fuzzes with a faint halo, a breath made visible in the half-light, like heat over stones at noon. The halo makes no promise, it waits. We pass our hands through it, and find our fingers tingling as though we have stuck them in a river. The boy laughs once, then clamps his mouth to keep from wasting the moment on joy. Don't chase it. 417 murmurs. Let it land. It lands. On our bodies, in our tools, along the rails, in the small cavities where air rests between stone ribs. The planet's lungs draw in and release, but now the release carries syllables in tones that our throats recognize. Not sentences, never sentences. Phrases of prayer dismantled for cleaning, laid out on a cloth to be reassembled later with love. Light of a seam says, "Man," a fault replies 3 galleries away. "Hands too," calls the cart. "Dust," whispers the oar in my palms. I begin to speak back. Not as priest, not as fool, but as a man who has finally found the pitch he was made for. "Hearts to the throne," I say into my wrist as I lift the pick, and the wall answers with a harmony that makes my knees loosen with gratitude. I find a rhythm where I can lead the gallery in a call that is also a strike. 3 blows, rest. 2 blows, rest. 1, rest. And in the rests, the stone breathes words no longer needing language. Men follow. Not because the overseer says, because the choir does. The day takes shape like a liturgy that has remembered itself. At water, we do not talk. We drink to the measure of the low chord, and our gulps fall neatly between the rails' hums as if someone had taught them. The overseer stares at his rod and sets it down. The priest leans his head against the wall and lets the halo ring the bones of his face. The servo skull, drifted down to observe, vibrates gently as if mildly pleased, and its vox whispers a fragment all on its own, an accidental harmony from a device built to record, not to praise. Even machines have memories, the hymn suggests. Even memory can be warmed back into breath. An inspection does come, as such things do. Officers with clean sleeves and a portable icon, they peer at numbers. They ask if the collapse affected output. The overseer submits the tallies. They are generous. One officer frowns at the headlamps, adjusted to dimmer settings than protocol expects. Another reaches a gloved finger toward the nearest halo and withdraws it quickly when the dust gathers around the leather like pollen. "There will be no music," the senior says crisply, misnaming what he cannot forbid. "The ministorum provides hymns suited to labor." He plants the icon at the gallery mouth. Its aquila vibrates, so subtly only those listening for vibration feel it in their teeth. After they leave, the aquila remains. It leans into the hum with a shiver and finds its note, as if the far-forged metal remembers awe and is briefly comforted to be spoken to by its old name. We return to work, but the work is not as it was. The chords multiply, not loudly, but with a patience that asks us to match it. Veins we had dismissed as dead give up shy intervals. Pockets of air join the choir when a cart passes, making harmonics in tiny cavities that sound like bells heard through snow. Men who had kept their mouths closed begin to hum without meaning to, their lips shaping the vowels that sustain everything. Even the drip from the side gallery enters time. It lands on a broken helmet and discovers tone. I find myself speaking to the seams as if they are parishioners I have been allowed to know by their first names. "Easy," I murmur when a stubborn face of rock resists. "Patience," I say when a cartwheel argues with a nick in the rail. The wall answers with a soft lift of pitch, as though embarrassed to receive thanks for something it would have done anyway out of affection. Toward mid-shift, a new voice enters higher than any so far, so thin I almost mistake it for a fault in my breathing. It is not in our gallery. It is in the ore, loaded on the wagons bound for the surface. As the train moves along the main tunnel, every crate of rock sings its little note. And together, these hundreds of small voices make a travel hymn, a procession of simple harmonies carrying the day's labor upward like offering. Men step back as the train passes. Many bow without thinking. The locomotive's boiler hisses in a great long sigh at a cadence that completes the chord with a bass we feel in the soles of our feet. For a moment we stand as a congregation watching our own liturgy go by, and no one is ashamed. "Witness," the priest says, voice smaller than the notes and grateful to be so. That is when it changes. Not an interruption, an addition. Between two chords, there is a flicker of something that cannot be tone, and yet my ear insists it is. It is the speech of stone woken by a tension it did not think it deserved. Names, I realize. Not ours. Older. Layers of names whose syllables have been sanded by time, smoothed into pebbles the tongue can almost carry. The sound rakes gently along the gallery, and where it touches skin, the hair rises, not in fear, but in recognition, the way a man rises in a friend's house when a parent walks in. The boy with the brand goes to his knees without ceremony, and places both hands flat on the face. His fingers spread, as if to read. His lips move. He is not singing. He is being sung through. 417 stands behind him with a hand on his shoulder to keep his body from tipping under the weight of it. "Easy," I whisper again. To everyone and no one. The priest, who has prayed in many rooms to many silences, steps into the middle of the gallery and lifts his hands not in the old aquila, not in the fine filigree of high cathedra, but in the simplest posture of reception. "If there is truth in this," he says, "let it be truth that does not require us to be clever." He does not try to lead, he listens. The choir bears him up. From then on, the long day becomes a single piece of music. We discover that if we align 3 picks along a seam at exact intervals and strike in a pattern 2, 2, 1, rest the ore just under them loosens as if having been persuaded rather than battered. The rails hum in the old 4-note thread. The wagons sing their procession. The walls carry not just the hymn but its memory. Between strikes they keep the chord alive the way a chest keeps breath between words. We work less with strength and more with attention, and we are not less tired when the rest call comes. But the fatigue is a neighbor now, not an enemy. Night brings no bells. Night is the absent key which makes the day's music complete by not sounding. In the barracks, men whisper the new notes to themselves, not to keep secrets but to keep time, smiling into their blankets as if they had been taught a thing children know. The candle mark appears on bunk slats and thresholds and the undersides of tables. Small circles with a stroke that means a wick awaiting fire. And somehow the sign needs no flame to feel lit. The overseer does not forbid the mark. He wipes his rod clean and sets it by his bunk like a pilgrim walking stick. The priest rearranges our night hymn again. He takes out 2 heavy lines and replaces them with quiet. In the gap the hum returns, so soft it could be the sound of wool settling, and yet we all stop breathing a moment to honor it. Are we wrong? 417 asks me later, after the lamps have lowered their heads. He means, are we replacing the emperor with a choir made of ore? We are learning to hear, I answer, surprised by the certainty in my mouth. Perhaps hearing is a form of obedience. He nods. He does not ask to whom. I sleep as if carried. In the space just before true rest, the hum leans close and adds a 5th note to our 4. The new interval makes a doorway in the head. I do not walk through. I stand in it and watch the dark breathe. And the dark looks back without malice. Morning again, and the mind wears its other face without shame. The lamps are dimmer. Their edges are velvet. The air holds a taste like the first cold of a well before a bucket breaks its skin. We take our places. The toll arrives. The stone says hello in 4 notes. Our notes. Then, from beneath those, the 5th returns and makes the doorway again. But this time it does not wait. Down, says the chord. Not a command, not doctrine, not hunger. Invitation, sung in the grammar of breath. The overseer's rod hisses once. The priest's head turns slowly toward the deeper galleries, where the chalk constellations record pressures beyond our days. The boy's eyes shine with the tearfulness of people who have been given a choice that names them. 417 looks at me, and in his look is both caution and consent. We do not move, not yet. We work our shift like good men. We finish our tally and let the numbers write their modest psalm. We extinguish lamps. We climb, but the cord has entered our bones. In the barracks, the rails seem to vibrate at a lower pitch, as if remembering something we have not met. The bunk wood warms under my palm with the same low note. Sleep does not come as quickly. In the delay, I whisper the simplest prayer I know. Keep us true. The hum answers in the 5th. Not tomorrow, I think. Not the day after. Soon, when devotion and attention are the same act and the light's velvet edge feels like a curtain, not a threat, we will go where the choir asks. We will take breath as permission. We will keep time as if it were a promise. I close my eyes. The cord holds me up like a hand under a child's ribs as he learns to float. I wake with the taste of quiet on my tongue. Not the quiet of emptiness, but the kind that follows a final chord vibration, still living in the wood of the bunk, the rails, the ribs. The barracks gives a single small sigh, and men rise into it as if into warm water. No one speaks. The candle marks beneath the slats seem darker, as though night has been kind to ink. When the bells come, they do not interrupt. They arrive like a hand that touches a shoulder only to remind the body it is already moving the right way. In the trench, the water falls thin and silvered. Each drop lands with a note, too pure to keep. We cup it and drink and understand, without saying, that what is asking for our mouths is not thirst alone. The servo skull passes overhead, ribboned and docile. For a moment its lenses cloud as if they remember not what they have recorded but what it felt like to float through the gallery while the oar sang. Even small machines can look devout when they pause between purposes. The overseer meets us on the platform like a man walking into a church after a night spent outside its door. His rod hangs from his hand like an instrument worn to smoothness. The priest stands close by with his thurible, eyes bright and tired the way eyes are after weeping without shame. He doesn't lift the censer yet. He listens with us to the air, which has acquired a patience I cannot describe without making it holy. We descend. Second level opens its lamp-lit throat, and the slope from the old collapse sleeps under timbers that look less like braces now and more like ribs made kindly by time. Someone has chalked the 4-note pattern on the white border along the cut 4 humble marks, no flourish. The rails hum softly, like a choir putting breath into its bodies before the first word. We take our places. The toll is late by exactly 1 heartbeat. The wall inhales with us. Then the picks rise less as muscle than as answer. The first chords return, bright and sure. But something has changed. The tones sit lower in the stone, as if we have shifted our weight correctly. The buckets sing as they rise. The empty carts coming down hum, a drone that folds beneath the oar's higher voices. The ceiling's chalk lines look like star paths notched into bone. They do not move, but they are red. The priest places the thurible at his feet and opens his hands. He does not bless us. He receives. We have learned to speak. 2 blows here, 1 there. Rest. The back of the pick for the seam that prefers a fingertip. The edge for the stubbornness that only attention softens. The gallery answers in harmonies that want nothing from us except the shape of our breath. I come to understand, not as argument, but as posture, that we have never labored alone. The world has been waiting for us to choose time over force. Across the tunnel, the boy with the brand hums the 4 notes as if keeping the rails from slipping away. He draws a candle sign in the dust with his heel, and then steps aside so no wheel will smear it. 417 keeps time with a tilt of his head, his mouth closed, his eyes half-lidded, as if he has learned to watch inwardly without becoming lost. The overseer's rod taps iron once, twice, not command, but consent. The sound travels. From the parallel galleries, from the deeper levels we have not walked, chords rise with the slowness of bread lifting under a cloth. Men pause to let the day knead them. We begin to sense each other by tone, not name. A high, thin harmony means the younger gang at the far face. A warm mid-chord means old hands coaxing a seam that has not yet learned to yield. A heavy bass, the carts making procession. The mind becomes a single instrument with many voices, not loud, never loud, simply present. Keep time, the overseer murmurs. A habit he cannot lay down, and time keeps us. At water, the priest lifts the thurible and finally swings it, small arcs, as if writing circles in the air for the notes to rest inside. The smoke chooses no seam now. It gathers where we stand and drifts in rings that hold their shape a heartbeat longer than they should. The incense smells less of oil today and more of something like the breath of old wood in Sunday. I take a sip from the cup and taste nothing, and in the nothingness is the clean flavor of enough. The inspection does not come, or if it does, it stands far from our gallery and cannot find proof to criticize. Numbers behave and need no defense. The Aquila icon we were given remains at the mouth of the tunnel, vibration invisibly threading it into the choir. Its double-headed bird looks stern in the lamplight and kindly in the hum, and both readings feel true. We begin the black litanies without naming them. The phrase will come later, when men need to explain natural grace to other men and must find sturdy words. For now, there is only the doing. We tune the rails as if they are strings, and we the hands remembering where to press. A wedge under a sleepered joint to lower a stubborn brightness. A sliver removed so a hollow will speak. The carts rolled at different intervals make different pulses, not complicated, just particular. We learn which set of wheels sings with the tenor of our gallery, which offers a soft contralto best fitted for the narrower vein on level 3. The boy hears more than we do. He walks the line like a small cantor, touching iron where it asks, leaving it where it tells him to. The overseer lets him. We divide the shift into unspoken psalms. The first is an offering, the warm-up, when we ask nothing and are grateful to feel our hands obey. The second is persuasion, the hymn of 2 blows and a rest, of leaning our weight toward stubbornness until it decides to lean back. The third mid-shift, when men are most likely to remember hunger, is remembrance. We play the rails lightly then, and the oar answers with the little notes that sound like names worn round by many mouths. Men smile without realizing why. The fourth is procession. The carts pass like lit candles in a nave, and we lower our picks to make the road of song for them. The fifth is petition light taps, empty spaces, the humming allowed to lead while we get out of our own way. The sixth, approaching the rest call, is thanksgiving. Small, sure blows, buckets lifted clean. The sound of tools finding their racks again with a grace that makes me want to apologize to any metal I have set down carelessly in my life. Between these psalms, a fifth note enters quiet, steady, never insisting. It lives at the edge of our hearing, beneath the rails, beneath the oar, beneath the breath that fills our chests and leaves them empty. When it is there, our feet find the floor more exactly. When it swells, lamps seem steadier at the same flame. We do not chase it. We let it belong to the place deeper than us, and, by belonging, it makes us welcome. I take a turn at the far face, where the light has already forgotten how to touch the corners. The velvet hem draws closer around our lamp circles. The centers glow like small suns resigned to humility. My pick meets the stone, and with the second blow, a thin harmonics rises, the sound of glass when a finger circles its rim. It feels like a question asked without an expectation of answer. I rest the pick on my shoulder and answer anyway. I am here. I tell the rock, with the courage of a man who has nothing to hide. The harmonics hold, and in the hold I hear no. I feel the 1,000 breaths of the sealed room. Our fear then, our consent, the patient invitations that kept panic from becoming man-shaped. The memory does not sting. It warms. I find that I am standing slightly taller, as if someone has put a hand between my shoulder blades to teach me the posture for being alive without protest. The priest moves into the center of our little world and, without lifting his voice, begins a new order to the old prayers. He keeps the first line because beginning is a kind of fidelity, and then he makes substitutions the way a careful craftsman replaces a broken piece with the same species of wood. Where the rote says, "Lord, we are unworthy," he says, "Lord, teach us to listen." Where the rote says, "Make us strong," he says, "Make us true." He leaves the line about surrender where he put it 3 nights ago, earlier than before. So we practice letting go before we're too tired to do it kindly. No one objects. The room approves in tone rather than speech. The boy takes my place at the face and finds his 4 notes with a confidence I would call liturgical if liturgy were taught by stone. 417 moves to the rails, his hands gentle, ears bent, the way a father checks the sleeping of a child after a long illness. The overseer stands at the mouth and watches for the small movements that the chalk lines would foretell. He is still the man whose job is to keep us from being foolish. He is also the man whose posture admits that sometimes the safest thing is the softest. The hum swells, not louder, fuller, as if the mind has remembered a room inside itself that offers better acoustics for what we are attempting. The procession returns. The train of ore goes by, box after box singing its small note. A wagon at the center catches the 5th, just for a breath, and the cord opens under our feet like a door we are allowed to stand upon without falling. The priest bows his head. I do not bow. I lift my face. I have spent too much of my life looking down. When the rest call comes, no one moves. The overseer does not give it. He says instead, very quietly, "It will keep without us." We respect him enough to return to the buckets and the racks, to draw water and sip. But the ceremony of pause is thinner than it has ever been. The song does not leave. It turns itself down and waits. And in the waiting it gathers a tenderness that feels like forgiveness for all the times we struck the world without asking its name. After water, the priest speaks only one word. Listen. We set our picks where they rest best and open our mouths to let our breaths touch the pitch. No lyrics, no doctrine, breath-shaping vowel, the way the walls have taught us. Men who have not dared to sing since childhood find they do not need to be clever. I hum low and steady because that is what my chest can carry. The boy rides a higher thread with ease. 417 takes a thin, reedy third. The overseer, without meaning to, hums the old 4 notes twice and then slides to the 5th with a roughness that makes it truer than any trained choir. The mine answers as if it has been waiting to be asked so politely. The rails give their spine. The ore sings its names. Pockets of air find harmonics in small bone hollows in the walls. The lamps lean their flames in the direction the tone calls them, as if light itself takes instruction from breath. The smoke from the thurible does not rise or fall. It hangs, a visible cord, and every swirl within it moves at the speed of our song. We close our eyes, not because we are afraid to see, but because seeing has learned to take its turn. In the dark behind my lids, I find the galleries without needing them to be lit. I feel the men spaced along the face by the shapes their voices make. I feel the timbers, patient as oaths. I feel the chalk lines like constellations, not of warning now, but of guidance arc to arc, pressure to pressure, the mathematics of mercy. I feel the old collapse no longer as a scar, but as a door we were carried through once to be taught a better way to breathe. The fifth rises. We do not chase it. We stand where we are and let it pass through us. I think of the time, as a boy, when I put the shell of my ear against wood and heard footsteps long before the floor spoke them to other men. The world is placing its ear close to us now, not to test us, to share breath. Somewhere far below the chord opens again, another door under the first, and air comes up from that depth with the taste of stone never kissed by Sunday. It is not cold, it is honest. The hairs along my arms lift and settle, my palms warm where they hold the haft. My eyes burn with grateful water. I will not wipe away, because to wipe it would be to tell the body that feeling is a mistake. Begin, I say, out of habit, already. The walls answer, not a voice, not syllables, but certainty rendered in tone. The boy's hum slides to a gentle stillness. 417's thin thread holds steady a breath longer and then eases, as if placing a child down on a bed without waking him. The rails keep the low drone like a hand under our chests. The lamps do not flicker. They do not need to. Light gathers itself at their centers, and at the edges the velvet thickens until the boundary between lamp and dark is as soft as a surrendered thought. We reach the place where sound no longer needs to be made to be present. All the galleries join us then, not one by one, not as a swelling, but as if a circle we had been walking around has finally closed without a seam. The chord is here. We are inside it. It is not loud. It is not even sound any longer. It is pressure given shape by consent, our consent, the stone's consent, the immense patience of a planet, allowing its breath to be shared among those who have learned politeness. I open my mouth to sing and find that there is nothing left to add and nothing left to withhold. My chest is an organ pipe agreeing to be hollow. My skull, once a resonant room for worry, fills with the simplest light, not bright, not accusing, merely the hue of seeing without the burden of naming. The priest kneels, not from weakness, but because kneeling is the position his body takes when exposed to truth without ornament. The overseer's rod remains at his side and will not be lifted again. Not because law has failed, but because law has recognized the day it doesn't need to speak. The fifth resolves. It does not rise. It sits. It sits where the breath sits between word and grows warm. The black litanies reach their last line, the one with no sound, and we step into it together without argument. The rails are quiet now. The oar is quiet. The lamps hold their small suns. Men stand with their hands at their sides like acolytes being named. The smoke from the thurible makes a single slow turn and becomes still as river water at dawn. I do not think. I listen beyond thinking, to that place where obedience and love are the same. A softness passes along the wall and through our bodies. It feels like a father's hand pausing over each head in turn, like the weight of a blanket smoothed at the corners, like a long, slow breath shared without hurry. We do not fall. We do not rise. We are held. Somewhere, very far and also right here, a bell is struck. Once, the sound walks outward and does not return. The world and our chests release together. Light gathers in the center of everything and does not move. We are inside the held note. And in the stillness where the held note becomes no note at all, I realize the breath that taught us has taken ours and kept it not as theft, but as keeping, so that we might not forget how to be a single instrument. I do not speak. There is nothing to say that would not make it smaller. We remain there radiant and still until time remembers itself. When sound returns, it does not arrive as music. It comes as breath, our own, turned inward. I wake standing, hands at my sides, palms warm against the stone. The lamps burn low but steady, their halos no longer end. Each man near me is still and upright, eyes open, faces peaceful in the way carved saints are peaceful, listening more than looking. The thurible rests on the floor. A thread of smoke rises through the still air and never breaks. The rails no longer hum. They wait. The mind smells of rain that has not yet fallen. I take a step and hear no echo, only the soft recognition of a world aware of its own weight. The word begin lives somewhere inside the silence, like a heartbeat no longer needing blood. The boy with the brand opens his mouth as if to speak, and a sigh leaves him nothing else, but it carries warmth. And that warmth moves through us like sunlight passing through water. It reaches the wall. The wall breathes back. Above, faint and far, the bells toll once. Their sound enters the stone and is changed, rounded, softened, purified of all command. The emperor listens from below. I kneel, not to pray, but to thank. The dust beneath my knees feels lighter than before, as if it remembers we are forgiven. I understand then that forgiveness was never earned. It was heard. I whisper the only truth that has survived the song. The emperor protects, I say. Then, after a breath, I think he only listens.